So lots to enjoy. My first guest today knows all about the stresses and strains of being a racehorse trainer. He also knows a good deal about success because his tally of winners goes right up into four figures. He's a classic winning trainer. He's trained 2 homebred winners at Royal Ascot and a homebred classic winner for his former bosses, Andrew Black and Michael Owen. His relationship with them has now ended in a much publicised split from his role at Manor House just before Christmas time, and he's now re-establishing himself in his former base in Lambourn, from where he sent out group winners at the July Festival when he was just in his second season with a licence. He's been assistant trainer to Rafe Beckett. He was also a successful jump jockey for Martin Pipe, and he sought the counsel of some of the very best in the game. He is, of course, Tom Dascombe. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I don't think there's much I need to say anymore. I think you've said everything there is to say.
It's been eventful, though, hasn't it? If you'd said, say, 20 years ago, you'd be in this position now with this many winners under your belt, a classic winner, and all the stories and ups and downs that have gone with it, would you have been surprised, or did you always think you were jumping onto a roller coaster?
No, I think if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I'd have said you're nuts. No, I mean, look, I've just loved every moment, and I'm blessed that horse racing is something I just totally love, and to just be here. What have I worked in horse racing? 33 years, and to be able to say you've done that and still want to get up in the morning and do it again. I can't believe there's that many people in the world that are lucky enough to have their absolute passion as their job.
I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? No matter what life's throwing at you, or no matter what difficulties or scrapes you get yourself in, if you're still, for that split second when your foot hits the floor in the morning, feeling the same way that you did 33 years ago, that's enough of a reason to do it. It's
great, isn't it? I mean, you know, there have been tricky times, but it's, on the whole, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Can you remember, and you've done a great piece with James Byrne in the Post this morning, where you talked about your teenage years and your experiences with your grandfather watching racing and your dad as well. Can you actually remember a moment where you thought, I'm hooked on this? I love this sport, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
I think that would be tricky to say, really, because, I mean, my earliest memories are of just horse racing. And wearing a riding hat, and I don't think there's ever like a key moment where it triggered. It's just all I ever wanted.
Was it horses? Anything to do with horses? Was it the animal that got you?
Yeah. And particularly thoroughbreds. You know, I've spent a lot of time with other horses, and one of my favourite horses is a cob, which was a wonderful hunter, still is, and but he doesn't have the brain of a thoroughbred, and being with thoroughbreds that's what I want.
So it's the fact that they can think faster, and you can do more with them. They have more agility.
Yeah,
and you enjoy that. So you've always enjoyed that training aspect of it.
I think that if you can go to the sales and buy a yearling that you can afford, and find somebody to own it, because I can't afford it, and educate it with a good rider and put it through the stalls and get it to the racecourse and it wins, it's just like, that's cool. And that, like breaking them in, I totally love it. And yeah, I think, you know, that's what I love about the game.
So you've gone from this position at Manor House, where you're probably training 100 plus horses, maybe 100, something like that?
Roughly.
Yeah. And you're now setting back up in Lambourn again on your own with the financial pressures that entails, and you've got a dozen. How are you coping with that? How are you adjusting to that pace of life?
It's obviously an awful lot slower. I'm not starting again. I'm rebuilding. Mm-hmm. And that's what I keep trying to tell myself. You know, this isn't a new venture. It's just I've changed postcode. And it does seem strange where you have a horse run, let's just say last Friday, and you haven't got another horse running until next Saturday, and you've got 8 days without going to the races. And that's the tricky bit, you know, because you don't want to run her the next day, you want to run her in the next race. You want to, you know, that's how it is, isn't it, you know? And so I've just got to be patient, and patience probably isn't my strongest attribute, but, you know, and we've just got to build and build. And if you think, you know, a couple of weeks ago we had 3 horses, and on Monday we've got our 14th horse arriving, and by the end of next week we'll have our 15th, and just got to breathe deeply and be patient, and it'll come.
You said patience hasn't been your strongest suit. How have you managed to combine? I mean, you've recognised a flaw in your character. How have you managed to combine what you've recognised as that character flaw with such a relatively successful career? Because everyone says, well, that's what you need to do this job. You need that patience. You need that cool-headedness.
Yeah, no, I think maybe I'm doing myself an injustice a little bit, because with horses I'm very patient.
Yeah.
With people I'm not. And just got to let it come, and it will.
When did you first think that going to Manor House to work with Michael Owen and Andrew Black was a good idea?
Almost straight away. I got a telephone call, was asked, and right at the beginning it didn't seem the most sensible thing to do, but after that...
Because you were going well, weren't you? You were having group winners in Lambourn.
Yeah, I mean, it was completely uproot, and that was probably a more difficult decision then to make. But I made it quite quickly because I don't believe in messing around. And look, it was the right decision. I mean, it was the right decision. We had great few years together. Everything was cool, and everything comes to an end. And that's all I can say, really. It's just, you know, it was the right thing to do at the time, and it was the right thing to do at the time to leave.
Which parts of the job gave you the most satisfaction when you were there?
Gosh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? I loved living in Cheshire. The parts of the job, I suppose...
When were you at your happiest?
When I was at my happiest? I think when I was at my happiest was probably after the first season at Manor House. The first season was dreadful. And going from all the wonderful facilities in Lambourn to training on one gallop, and that's not a criticism, it's just a fact. And it was a beautiful gallop, and is a beautiful gallop, but going from all the grass and the long and the short and the back of the hill to going to train on one gallop, and you had to teach the horses that they were going to canter and gallop on the same strip. Mm-hmm. That was quite tricky. I didn't understand it, and if I didn't understand it, I couldn't get the horses to understand it. And after a year, I think we got there. So I think the second year was probably the happiest time, because I realised I understood what I was supposed to be doing.
So you realised then suddenly you had a future in this. There was a future in the
Yeah,
enterprise,
absolutely.
and you could do it.
100%, yeah.
And then you were knocking out your base rate was kind of your 50 winners a year, and then build on top of that.
Yeah, and I was very lucky. Actually, I'm going to see him later, Peter Deal. He sent me a horse called Rhythm of Light, and she won at Royal Ascot and then Brown Panther. And I think that sort of time, pretty sure it's my second year there, it felt like everything had fallen into place.
And tell me about your relationship with Michael Owen then.
It's, I didn't know him at all when I went there. I knew he was a football player.
Is that literally all you knew?
That's all I knew, yeah. I remember once walking into the office and there was this nice young man sitting in a chair, and I said, "Hello, nice to meet you, what do you do here?" And he said, "I don't work here." And it turned out it was Paul Scholes. And I have no understanding of football. I've got very little now. But Michael was a charming, lovely young man, and still is the same, just a little bit older, like we all are.
But you got on extremely well.
We've got on extremely well for the whole time, I don't have a bad word to say about anybody.
These are special moments for you, and I think this is the sort of moment that people associate with your career at Manor House, isn't it? It's that sort of spirit of enjoying the racing, enjoying the day at the races, that sort of camaraderie amongst the owners, the entertainment side of it. I know you a little, and I know that whilst you are social, you are also someone who is quite solitary in other ways. Did you find this aspect of it quite stressful? The idea of having to be on all the time?
I think that sometimes, especially Chester May Festival, things like that, but I do think we took a policy there that, we couldn't guarantee your horse would be any good, but I could guarantee you'd have a good time. Mm-hmm. And looking after owners was very much part of having a racehorse. And it still is, don't get me wrong. But I do think that there was, a real plug of, come to the yard and enjoy your day and see your horse and have a glass of champagne and we'll go for lunch. And that was a huge part of it. And it still will be a huge part of what I try and do, because, when you're paying £55 a day, you need to make sure you enjoy doing that.
So actually you feel that that's something you can take and learn a little from and bring into your own business?
Yeah, very much so. I don't really remember doing that when I trained in Lambourn before. Mm-hmm. But I do think that it's very difficult to go and buy that yearling and say this is going to be a rocket.
Yeah.
But I can say buy this yearling and I'll make sure you have a great 6 months through the summer.
So that relationship you had, similar ages, similar stages of your life with Michael Owen, clearly worked very well and is what sustained a dozen years at Manor House. Evidently the relationship with Andrew Black, Bert Black, wasn't so robust in the latter years. What do you think went wrong there, particularly given the success that you'd had together?
I think really communication. I think that whether you're talking to your wife, your girlfriend, your owner, your whatever it is, communication is key. And I'm pretty sure that I lost a bit of heart with that communication. And I think that it's sad, really, because, Andrew Black came to Manor House to support me, and I suppose ultimately, that relationship disintegrated, and we both ended up just giving up.
Giving up on each other,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, and it's so sad because, I mean, you know, if you think, you know, we claimed Baldovina and she produced 2 Royal Ascot winners, and there were lots of reasons to really be very happy. But that's life.
Was it just a basic personality clash, do you think? Just coming at the life from different angles?
Yeah, I think Chase Farm really developed, and I think his passion for breeding, and I don't know why I'm talking about him because, you know, I should be talking about me, but I think his passion for breeding became more integral into his life than having a racing yard. And what I saw was so important, maybe wasn't quite as important, you know, to Bert, and I think we just drifted apart, really.
And obviously, with him as a key part of the business,
yeah, it becomes difficult, doesn't it?
Well, it becomes borderline unsustainable, doesn't it?
Yeah, and look, I mean, I look forward to seeing Bert at Royal Ascot, and you know, there's no falling out. We just fell apart. I think that's the best way of describing it.
And when you left, how much of a personal wrench was it for you?
Oh dear, that's a tricky one. My daughter was born there, and Daisy, and when I had to tell her, that was probably the hardest part. Where are we going to live, Dad? This is my home, and that was the hardest bit. After that, it wasn't a problem.
But once you got through that, you could then clear your mind and think.
Yeah, 100%.
Of building.
And I'm not going to, you know, the last few months. So the first few months of this year were very tricky because you're there knowing you're leaving, but it's my licence, so I need to make sure everything. And the BHA were brilliant, but that was a tricky stage because I knew that 70 of the horses that I had wouldn't be coming with me, and I just needed to make sure that they were okay, and then wave goodbye.
And I'm guessing it's quite hard to motivate yourself when you're doing a job and you're being paid to do a job, but you know that you're not going to reap the rewards of what you're actually doing in that moment.
Yeah, it's not really that, because I don't really think I was living in the real time. I was thinking about what was happening tomorrow whilst doing what was happening today. And all you do is look after the horses, look after the staff, make sure everything's fine, but focus on the future.
There's a real intensity to the way that you approach training racehorses. You've said how much you love it and how much you love thoroughbreds, but I'm quite interested in the way that you escape the sport. And you've often said, and you've said to me again this morning, you don't really watch an awful lot of horse racing.
No.
How do you square those two things?
Well, it's so all-consuming, isn't it? You know? And personally for me, however anybody else does whatever they do, it's entirely up to them. But I find that for me, the best way is to concentrate solely on me and my horses. So let's say you open the Racing Post and you've got a runner in the 2:15 at Ripon this afternoon. I will know whatever any of the competition has done and how we're going to ride our horse to beat them. Yeah. But I wouldn't sit around on a Saturday afternoon watching horse racing on, what's it called, ITV. Yeah. I would be taking the dogs for a walk, spend the day with my daughter, switching off, just not fussing about things that are totally out of my control. I mean, it's lovely watching Jim Crowley win, you know, the Lockinge, because he's my best mate, and I, you know, that is important to me. But I wouldn't watch Thirsk on a Tuesday afternoon because I don't really think it does anything for me apart from make me think, I wish I had a runner in this race. And then you beat yourself up because you haven't. And, you know, I can't believe that all football players watch football all day long, or tennis players, or whatever, you know. I'm only interested in my horses. Yeah, there are times when it's tricky because an owner will ring you up and say, oh, you know, I'll say, how are you, you know. And I said, yeah, great after my winning yesterday. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I didn't even watch it, you know. Yeah, well done with that one. But it's how I focus on myself, my horses. It suits me.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because that level of single-mindedness is, of course, going to be your greatest strength and arguably your
downfall.
Well, possibly only insofar as you mentioned that story with the owners, and of course, all the owners, and some more than others, they just want you to talk about their horses with them.
Yeah.
And things can go wrong all the time, and actually, all they want is just to talk about horses.
Yeah. I totally get that, but I think it's very easy to drive yourself mad. And the only way of not driving yourself mad is to have a focus and then have a break.
Do you think, as a person, you're better now, even though you're in a less obviously advantageous position in terms of number of horses and, you know, business, etc.? Do you think, as a person now, you're better equipped not to drive yourself mad, in your words, than you were, say, a decade ago, when you're sort of going 1,000,000 miles an hour?
Yeah.
Have you slowed down a bit?
Yeah, no, I don't think I've slowed down at all.
I mean, I don't mean are you about to get your Zimmer frame.
No. Other people tell me that. People that are close to me tell me that I'm more relaxed, whatever the word is, I don't know.
Centred, maybe, I don't know.
Oh yeah, sometimes you just can't see yourself, can you? And I'm pretty happy with who I am, and I'm pretty pleased with where I am, and I don't think I've got too much to concern myself about. And maybe I am a little bit more relaxed. Doesn't mean I don't want it anymore.
There was an interesting piece in James's article this morning, and it's something that you've hinted at a little bit before. I get the feeling sometimes you've thought of yourself, rightly or wrongly, as a bit of an outsider, as a bit of an interrupter, rather than someone who feels completely at home within the sport. Is that something you still feel?
No, not consciously. I mean, if you think about it, you know, I'm not from a racing background. You know, I came from the city. I got into horse racing, and sometimes, and I'm going to try and, sometimes you do feel like a bit of an outsider. But that's obviously just a personal thing. And I just need to stop worrying, I suppose.
Do you worry?
Oh, God, constantly. Yeah.
But not to the point where you feel you can control that. You don't feel that you worry to the point where it's actually detrimental to you or detrimental to your health?
No, God, no. I mean, you worry about just the horse and, you know, performance and staff and the things that you actually have a physical ability to do something about. I don't worry about anything else.
But yeah, it's caring. It's just caring about the job and the people and the horses.
Yeah. It's my life.
And sounds like it will carry on being your life because you simply can't get it out of your bloodstream.
Well, I don't know what else I'd do.
What do you think you would do? If racing got turned off tomorrow, what would you do? What would you be good at?
Fella delivered the biffa bin the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yesterday morning, and he just gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning, starts work at 4, finishes at 1:30 in the afternoon, delivers bins, loads of work, 35 grand a year. I'd probably do that. I don't know what else I'd do.
I mean, it's true. For the moment, you're going to stay with us, aren't you, for a bit?
I'd love to.
Yeah, for the moment, Tom Dascombe, still a racehorse trainer, not quite delivering the biffa bins. Thank you very much. We'll see you in a minute.